Text, Acts 10:44-48, KJV. While Peter yet spake these words, the Holy Ghost fell on all them which heard the word. And they of the circumcision which believed were astonished, because that on the Gentiles also was poured out the gift of the Holy Ghost. For they heard them speak with tongues, and magnify God. Then answered Peter, Can any man forbid water, that these should not be baptized, which have received the Holy Ghost as well as we? And he commanded them to be baptized in the name of the Lord. While Peter was still speaking, heaven interrupted him. No invitation was given, no ritual was completed, no delay was observed. The Spirit of God fell immediately, freely, and unmistakably upon those who were listening. The moment is abrupt, almost disruptive. Peter does not finish his thought, God finishes it for him. This scene unfolds in the house of Cornelius, a Gentile. Up to this point, the covenant story had moved within the boundaries of Israel, with Gentiles standing outside, looking in. But here, without warning, the dividing line collapses in real time. The same Spirit who had come upon Jewish believers now rests upon those who had never stood under the old covenant system. The astonishment of the circumcised believers reveals how unexpected this was. They were not surprised that God was powerful, but that he would act so freely toward those once considered outside. Yet the evidence was undeniable. The gift had been poured out. Notice the order. The Spirit comes first, before water, before any outward sign of inclusion. God gives what only he can give, and he does so apart from human mediation. The Spirit is not granted as a reward for obedience, nor as a response to ritual performance. He is given in the hearing of the word, freely, decisively, and completely. They heard them speak with tongues and magnify God. The same manifestation that had marked the beginning of a new covenant reality among the Jews now appears among the Gentiles. This is not a second-tier experience. It is not partial. It is not different in kind. It is the same gift, the same Spirit, the same divine acceptance. Peter's response is not to question whether this should have happened, but to recognize that it already has. Can any man forbid water? The question is rhetorical. No one can forbid what God has already established. The outward act of baptism does not produce the inward reality. It acknowledges it. The Spirit's arrival is the decisive moment. Everything else follows as recognition, not condition. These Gentiles did not move toward God through layers of covenant obligation. God moved toward them fully and finally in the person of his Spirit. What had once been mediated through temple, priesthood, and law is now given directly, immediately, and universally to those who hear. This moment stands as a turning point in redemptive history. The barriers that once defined access are no longer standing. The presence of God is no longer confined, restricted, or delayed. It is poured out, and it is poured out equally, which have received the Holy Ghost as well as we. There is no distinction in measure, no hierarchy of acceptance. What was given at the beginning is now given here. The same Spirit, the same fullness, the same divine testimony. Peter does not command them to seek the Spirit. They have already received him. He does not instruct them to qualify for what has been given. He acknowledges that qualification has already been granted apart from their effort. God bears witness before man has time to respond. The flow of the passage is unmistakable. Hearing the word, receiving the Spirit, and then recognizing what God has done. The initiative belongs entirely to God, and the gift is not suspended on human conditions. What began as a message spoken by Peter becomes a revelation enacted by God. The Spirit falls, the boundary dissolves, the gift is given. And in that moment, the inclusion of the nations is no longer a promise waiting to be fulfilled. It is a reality unfolding before their eyes.